Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Canadian Story. Today, we are joined by one of the most important people in my life, Ian Blackwood. Ian has been mentoring me for, a decade and a half. I discovered his band when I was a wee child and fell in love with it. I have one of his songs tattooed on my arm. And this man was the first man to teach me how to record. This man is the man who hooked me up with the job that has taken me through 25 plus countries, touring with a professional band. He has mentored me in hunting and countless other things. Ian is a singer and songwriter. He is a wedding photographer. He is an actor and an all-around interesting and awesome dude. So Ian, welcome to the show.
Listen, for the record, Zach said it, not me, okay? So, Zach, David, thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So just to start things off, we would love to ask you, like we ask a lot of our guests, what is something that you love about Canada?
Oh, man, it's a beauty question, and here's the thing. There's a lot of things I love about Canada, but some of my favorite, and I think the most favorite thing I love about this country is our seasons. We got some cold winters, probably, we're in Ontario, but probably not as cold as where David's from, but,
True enough.
But, I love our seasons. I love what it does to the fact that we get these heavy winters and these nice springs, and I love what it does to the soil. I'm a bit of a sustainable kind of type guy, and I like growing my own vegetables. So I love what it does to the soil and stuff. And yeah, I think seasons is a big one for me.
I love that because it really is something that's pretty unique to Canada, how and actually Ontario to a degree, how intense our seasons are, right? Like you genuinely get a spring, summer, and fall. You don't really get a spring, summer, and fall in Texas. Like you're gonna get summer and then rainy season.
Except for now, I think hell's just froze over.
Well, yes,
Except for right now.
True.
But no, you are right, David. And I think that again, it's like the diverse, just as much as Canada's kind of diverse in culture. It's also quite diverse in weather, I think. Which is awesome.
Exactly.
One of the things I love about the seasons is that as the seasons change, I find that I change with the seasons. So in the winter, I become more internal and drawn into myself, and I hibernate a little bit more.
Right. Oh,
and
I like that.
In the summer, I just naturally change with the land, and I become more vibrant and more outgoing, and I do more things. And my wife, who's from California, didn't grow up with seasons, and she never experienced that until coming to Canada and feeling the ebb and flow of the land, which I think is something very, very cool.
And she's still here, right, Zach? So it's
it must be something. You must have done something right.
She must be enjoying it, and you must have done something right.
Yeah,
I like to think so.
That's good.
So Ian, I want to talk about hunting because a number of years ago you got me into hunting, and it's become a very important part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to talk about you and your story and how you got into it and why.
And I think to add to that, is there anything more Canadian than hunting?
Seriously,
I don't think there is.
No, I don't think so. And I think that was one of it was honestly, guys, it was one of those little the box that I was missing that was unchecked in my life.
Right.
I thought, okay,
right.
I also have to learn how to do that. In all seriousness, in all seriousness, I actually so you're talking to a person who spent a lot of his life playing in punk rock bands and playing punk rock music. Now, that being said, I don't think there's a stigma where punk guys don't hunt or anything like that. But for the most part, I was running with a crowd, like the vegan, vegetarian type crowd, just the types that would never, ever imagine, yourself stalking an animal, setting up and waiting, sometimes days, sometimes years for an animal, and then, ethically taking that animal's life and then learning how to process it properly and all those things. That was
I call it harvesting.
Yeah, that was a way better. Yeah, I should have just said harvesting. Jeez. But you are correct. That's it. And I was not. I just was not really. I didn't imagine myself as one of those types. Even going back 6-7 years ago, because it was only. I'm still quite new. I'm 5-6 years into my my sort of hunting career as you would, but
Let's take a moment to appreciate, just to draw out the difference. When I met Ian, he was wearing skinny black jeans and eyeliner, and now whenever I run into Ian, he's wearing camo and usually carrying a weapon.
Well, we all grow up sometime, right?
yeah, I just looked in the mirror one day and I stopped painting my fingernails and I just started, painting camo paint on all my weapons.
Well, yeah, no, but I want to hear about this journey. So tell us more about this journey that you were on.
Well, hunting and I'm going to tie in firearms too, just because I'm an avid firearm owner and a proprietor of so as long as you pass our licensing program in Canada and all this stuff for your right to own and to house firearms, you do it safely and all that good stuff. But that's how it all kind of started for me. I had kind of very little interest. If anything, I didn't really like guns. My father's a retired police officer for Metro Toronto. He served for 32 years. He always had a sidearm. He always had a handgun on him, and on the job. And I mean, he wasn't really a gun guy either. He was a great shot, though. Funny thing about him, he's one of the best shots in his platoons, but he just wasn't really. It was just one of those things he was naturally good at, but he just didn't really like fall in love with it the way I've fallen in love with firearms. But anyhow, my father-in-law. My wife and I, and we've been married now for 11 years, going on 12, and we've been together for 15, 16 years. And
wow. We'll have to have you back on to talk about that. That's a long relationship.
That in and of itself is an episode, but
exactly.
But yeah, after meeting her dad, and he's such a great guy, and he's actually an avid collector, and he's got some really cool old historic firearms as well as grandfathered things and things that I probably wouldn't be able to ever own because I'm not of nearly the same generation. But anyway, it was kind of him. He mentioned that he said one day, these firearms have to go somewhere, and
right.
And they'll go to a smelting plant if they don't go to anybody, or they'll go to a bunch of friends or collectors that he knew. And funnily enough, it was actually my wife Erin's idea to get our firearms licenses. So
right.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, Zach. I thought I told you that story, but yeah. So and I'll be honest with you, kind of begrudgingly, I thought, okay, well, yeah, I guess we'll go and get our PAL and get our prohibit or our restricted and non-restricted. So we did the testing, and actually the course was so cool, and it was so educational. We did it with a fellow named Tony Cooper, and he runs I think they're called Ready Aim Firearms. His little like clinics he does, but he was so informative. And he was so good and charismatic about the whole thing that I actually kind of got stoked about firearms. And then it wasn't until I got my first Russian SKS Kalashnikov rifle that you can actually
love the SKS.
Dude,
love the SKS.
And as you know, David, I'm sure you can take apart the whole thing with your hands. So there's
it's one of the best guns in the. Yeah. I love the SKS.
Yeah, and you can just you could use one cartridge to just pop the trigger mechanics out, and then next thing you know, you've got a whole completely taken apart rifle right in front of you. And honestly, man, I'm mechanically minded. I've always been mechanically minded. I'm the person that when I was 11 or 12 and I got my first electric guitar, I had it in parts within a few months. Like I literally took the whole thing apart.
Right. You wanted to see how it worked. Exactly.
And I'm being mechanically minded and being that type of person. When I did that with the rifle, it's something hit me where I was like, oh, I'm in love right now.
This is a machine unlike any other machine.
Totally. And I thought to myself, like, imagine, being a commando in the thinking about being a commando in the trenches and thinking how when you had to clean this thing and you would literally clean it with the cleaning kit that's in the buttstock of most SKS. Like just all these little things where I thought, because I love mechanics. I love how things are made. I love watching those shows, how things are made. And then, like after a couple times at the range, I actually, I thought to myself, and it was at the time when I stopped being vegan, stopped being vegetarian. I always said to myself, I really would love to, experience what it's like to actually properly and go get my own meat. Like if I'm going to eat it again, I should know what it takes, and not just fishing. Like I should know what it takes to stalk the animal, to kill it, to harvest it, everything, man. Yeah. So then I went and got my hunting license immediately. And at the time, you had to do a turkey test, which now is all roped in. But I got my turkey test too at the same time. And then it was funny. My dad, who's not a hunter type at all, he said, I got my buddy Bob lives up in Huntsville, and he's looking for someone to go hunting with him sometimes. And he said he'll take you. And it was my first time ever going. So he took me under his wing, and I only got to go up about 2 years in a row, but I'd only go up for about 2 days and then I'd come back home, and then that was my hunting season. It was over. So I hadn't really secured land yet, and I was still kind of like trying to figure that stuff out. But one of the best pieces of advice Bob ever gave me about hunting, he said, get a crossbow or get a bow and arrow. If you're not into the compound bow world just yet, he said, get a crossbow. And I said, okay, well, like, what's the big thing about the crossbow? He goes, well, they're accurate as hell.
Right. Yes.
Which helps.
They're lightweight per se. But he said the best part is you get the bow season. And I thought to myself, oh, that's brilliant. Like, you go from your 1 to 2 week gun hunt, and then all of a sudden you've got almost 90 days, depending on where your wildlife management unit is, so where you're hunting. But that was some of the best advice he ever gave me.
There's also just more nobility in a lot of ways, I feel like, to killing an animal with a bow.
Oh, absolutely. And I think and we can discuss that all day long as well, for sure. But that's some of the best advice he ever gave me. And I thought about it too, because I thought that makes total sense. And also the cool thing about a bow's only season is, especially where it ends up, where I hunt on my uncle's property, he prefers that we only use bow. And he's in Brantford, so he's only an hour from me. But I can spend, other than the 2 gun hunt weeks, I can spend 80 days plus or 75 days plus trying so hard, just trying and failing. Whereas like with the gun hunt, you only get a couple of weeks to fail. So this way, at least I can fail for longer. But
well, and that's how you learn, right? That's how you learn.
Exactly. Yep, that's how you learn, especially with hunting, man. Oh my goodness, is it ever just a climb? A climb.
So tell us a little bit about your first hunt. What was it like? What did you learn?
Actually, my first hunt was this is one of my favorite stories. It was with Bob. He took me on, and it was day 2. So the first day we went, it was great. He just kind of explained the simplicities, and we talked about still hunting versus sitting on a watch, which versus tree stand hunting and stuff like that. And he explained those things to me, and then we just hiked into some of his favorite spots, and we kind of looked around, and we were sort of just getting a feel for what we were going to get into over the next, I think I was going to hunt for about 48, 72 hours with him or something like that. So, but day 2 had to have been the funniest day. Bob, he's a fella in his 60s. And he's a bit of an old dog, new tricks, can't do it. So he's just got his ways. He decided he'd lead the hunt a few feet ahead of me and go check his trail cam and check his feeder to see if there was any deer footage on the cams. Sure enough, because he's a bit of an older fella and I guess some of his hearing is gone, he he decides to take a few further steps ahead, get ahead of me a little more, and then I guess he's getting kind of excited. And all of a sudden I look over, and honestly, not 15 yards was a massive 12-point buck. And he was probably a 3 or 4 year, maybe 5 year, and then a really nice looking doe just hanging out, but it clearly caught us. But the worst part was Bob didn't know because he's too busy. Oh. He's fiddling with his hunting camera. And I'm going, and I'm just going, pop, pop. Trying my best to yell but not yell, and then he looks at me and I'm pointing. I'm the eyeball, the 2 points on the eye, and then and he's there. It sure is this majestic buck. So Bob's looking at me and he's just kind of starts shaking a little bit. And I'm and this is the first time. I honestly didn't think I was going to see anything.
Right.
I didn't know. I just didn't know. Right. But he'd obviously he's always done his prelim, and he's got his feeder out there. He's got his cameras. But anyway, man, it was so majestic. But he caught us, and then he just ran off. But then the best part, I swear to God, it was like an epic deer film moment. He stood up about 35, maybe 45 yards, right at a range of our crossbows. And there was just too much bush, but he stood right up just on this sort of this ridge, and he looked at us, and he just sort of kind of went and you could see that his nostrils just kind of shoot out a little bit of that cold air. And then he just kicked off and left, and he was just suckers. And I was so funny. I just remember him just he was so majestic too.
Their animals are.
But I blame. Sorry to cut you off. I blame Bob for that one.
Yeah, that's on Bob. That's on Bob for sure.
He knew that too. He knew that. He felt bad about it. But
so a lot of people who are opposed to hunting, they hate the idea of killing another living creature. And it's interesting because most of these people kill other living creatures in some way or another all the time. They drive cars. They heat their homes. There's always a cost. Life and death are married in existence, right? For the old or for the new to rise, the old must die, right? And one of the things that I've always found fascinating is we killed off a lot of these animals' predators, and now we're basically the only predator of any significance left. And if we don't hunt them, their populations will explode, and they'll actually be a lot of the disease and other things will be the thing that has to take them out. So I want you to share with the listeners your first experience harvesting, let's say, a deer, and what that did for you in terms of your own understanding of life itself.
Yeah, if you don't mind, David, can I talk about the first turkey? Because the first turkey I
sure,
actually
yeah,
got,
actually, yes.
only because that was the first animal that I ever got was turkey, and subsequently the years after that, just turkeys for a while until I finally scored. And we can talk about the deer too, but honestly, the turkey too. I mean, I think it's just as meaningful, it being
absolutely,
quite a dinosaur of a bird, and oh man, I'll never forget. It's funny. I have these conversations too with a meat eater friend. Here's the thing: if you're a meat eater friend, and you immediately say to me or a friend who, colleague or friend who's hunting, and you say, "Oh, how can you do that?" The conversation's over. Like you can't.
Yeah, it's just stupid. It's just stupid.
Now, if you're vegan or vegetarian, yes, let's absolutely have a debate and a conversation about it. I'm 100% on board. I want to hear about your lifestyle. I used to be part of that lifestyle. I used to completely subscribe to that. So, but yeah, if you're a meat eater and you're telling me that hunting is cruel, then the conversation is absolutely over. I'm sorry, but you can't go and buy it off a shelf and pretend like someone else didn't do that job. And that's the thing about it too. Someone else did that job for you. You don't even know what it's like to do that
You're
job,
washing your hands of the blood, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Quite literally.
So, yeah, I'll never forget my very first turkey harvest though, man. It actually was in and it was cool too because they ended up getting featured in the Canadian Outdoors magazine, Outdoors Mag, and I actually ended up winning a little coffee mug and stuff from it just because it was my first harvest, and it was a nice picture.
Yes.
And yeah, so I submitted it in. But anyway, I'll never forget. I took my neighbor John, who's he's a veteran hunter of maybe 25 years. He's from Manitoulin Island originally, and we connected one day. I was just heading out to my truck, and I went to my garage and I grabbed my target and my crossbow, and he just looked over at me. And we just looked at each other, and he went, "Hey," and I went, "Hey," and he went, "Okay, cool." And then he went back in his house, and we just knew at that moment we were going to be friends, and he knew that I was a hunter. Because he didn't know all those years I used to pull up in a van and a trailer, and like Zach said, I had nail polish on me, and it was a funny little time in my life. And I mean, I don't regret it whatsoever. It was a time I lived. It was wonderful. It was fun. But this, I'm obviously a different person now. But yeah, anyway, I took him hunting to my uncle's, and I've been doing reconnaissance for a couple of years now at this point. And I was starting to track the turkeys and the hens and the toms and what they were doing. The toms are still difficult, as Zach knows. They're difficult at my uncle's, but the hens though
we'll have a little helper for you the next season, I would think. This dog is pretty good at
that's awesome,
them
man.
out. Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no dog. Their dogs aren't allowed to hunt in that WMU, which is a huge bummer. But I think
we'll find another place. Yeah,
I honestly think we could refute it though, and I think we could probably open it up to the consideration because I think some people do it anyway. So, but yeah, they always say kind of no dogs in that area, which I think is silly. But anyway, I'll never forget. I invited him to come hunting, and I'd been doing reconnaissance for months, and I was trying to and I was also like, I wanted to show him that I'm a hunter too. I was like, I know where the birds are, and I know. So the whole morning was a bit of a crapshoot, and we hadn't heard or seen much. And then I said to him, let's take the rest of the early afternoon, and I'll show you around the property. So we walked around a bit, and it's only 35 acres. So depending on what trails you take, it doesn't take forever to go around, a good half of it or 3/4. But anyway, I said, listen, do you want to wrap it up or do you want to keep going? He said, let's keep going. So we went back to where we were, but honestly, we were only sitting for about 35, 40 minutes, and we were nice and quiet. He had a blind off about 20, 30 yards from where I was, but they were pointed obviously in opposite directions, but not at each other. And we just kind of waited, and the next thing you knew, he actually texted me. He said, I hear purrs, and then sure enough, a nice flock, about 7 or 8, maybe 9 hens came walking through right where we were set up. And then it was really the first time for me. So I started shaking. My heart started racing.
Right, yes. It's quite the feeling, isn't it? Like
adrenaline
really is, on a level that it's pure adrenaline in a different way than other people experience adrenaline. Like it's uncomparable to any other form of adrenaline.
Absolutely, and especially the bit of the sweats and that rush. So it started coming through me. Held up my crossbow. Found a half-decent hen, made sure she was in the sights for a good few seconds. I think I may even half closed my eyes. I don't remember, but
That's amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
I was just like, or I think I maybe kind of said a bit of a prayer and then sort of opened it and then, just let out a nice exhale, squeeze the trigger, boom. And she went down real fast, died real quick. But I remember seeing 2 arrows fly off in the distance. And it was my neighbor who was a compound bowman. He got 2 arrows off somehow, but he still managed to miss his because he was.
Oh no!
Yeah. So it was a bit of a bummer because I wanted to double harvest for sure. But
Yes.
he later found out he was having some sight problems, I think, with his compound bow. So, but anyway, I remember he actually just said, "Hey, just give it," because I walked up and he's like, "No, just wait, just give it a minute, take a breath, relax, calm down." And I was doing all these things, and I got to be honest with you, I'm so happy that he was there because he actually did help me a lot. And he was, he's been amazing. His name's John Graham. He's been awesome. John, if you listen, thanks, brother, again. Like he's been, Zach actually was with me this year when we were butchering my doe that I got this year. So he's been incredible. He's been pivotal in the harvest and cleaning of the animals and showing me how to do it. And then I in turn showed Zach exactly how to do it in the way John showed me. But yeah, it was. I think I shed a tear. I did. I shed a tear, and I remember saying,
nice.
"Yeah, I remember saying thank you." I put my hand on the turkey, and again, this is just a turkey, I know, but to me, it's a life. I value every animal life, and just like I value human life, and but yeah, and something changed though. It changed, and then I think after that, it was just like there was a bit more clarity in my life. There was just a better understanding, when I eat, especially eating birds and chickens, but in general, eating meat and getting it myself, roast, and then after cleaning it and roasting it and all those other things. But yeah, that feeling it's like nothing else, man.
It changes you, doesn't it?
Now, I want to get into
100%.
that. What do you think it changed in you from this? Like, what perspective on life? How is your perspective on life different now?
Man, great question. For me, it made me, it humbled me, first of all, because I'd spent years trying to figure these birds out. Just like with deer, man, like people think, oh, I get friends all the time saying, oh, so it's cool, so you just get free meat. You just go out there and get free meat. It's like, no, man, you have no idea.
Yeah,
like,
you don't know what you haven't been where I've been.
you don't know, man.
You don't know who I am.
But like to just completely discredit Mother Nature like that. Like we talk about Mother Nature and how about like how everyone's talking about climate and all these things and the warming and the cooling and all that, all those other things. But there's some things that we sometimes just don't talk about enough, and it's the sheer like just savagery and not only savagery but like animals are incredible, man. Deer, like they can leap like 6 feet or 12 feet or whatever it is in one bound. Like,
oh, they could turn around on a dime. Like I remember once I was driving in Alberta and a deer came out at night and I slammed on the brakes and that deer fell on the road from fear, from the squealing of my brakes. I bumped it with my bumper. It got up and was gone within less than 5 seconds. Yeah.
Gone. How many times have you walked in the woods where, again, this comes right down to what changed in me. Every time before, especially before getting a deer and getting a doe, or you'd hear a deer whistle and you think, oh, your hunt is blown. But even the little things that you weren't doing right before because you were blowing your hunt because you're a terrible hunter, like the things that you learn after you finally harvest that animal, it's just like, oh my goodness, like I don't know. I think it's a lot of respect. I really, really didn't know that not that I didn't have respect for nature and the animals, but the amount of respect I gained, and especially like, man, like I'm inside right now. They're outside right now. It's like, like
All
granted,
the
some of them won't survive some of the cold, but for the most part they do. And when they do, it's like, man, it got down to -30 that season. Like that to me, like, and that's kind of part of the hunting too, and why I think it's important people get out there, especially in the colder season too, even to just experience a few times, just so you understand and you gain that respect, because it's like these animals, turkeys too, like, man, they're in that right now. Like they don't have houses that are heated,
Yeah, I think that's something that the non-hunting community doesn't understand about the hunting community is the deep and incredible respect the hunting community not only has for the land itself, but the animals that they hunt. I don't know.
I think we need to be a little bit fair. There are bad actors in the hunting community.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Like
Oh, yeah.
poachers and
Yeah.
And so I don't want to sugarcoat it. There are bad people who hunt.
Oh yeah, people who don't ask permission, you deal with it all the time. I've heard stories. Even the property I hunt, they're no longer around. But I had a game warden come right out to my blind once because he was looking for a couple of guys that had no permission. And yeah, it happens. It definitely happens, man.
But like going back to what you said, Zach, I would say the good actors in the hunting community have a more appreciation for nature than any of these, woke environmentalists who are
yeah.
like farmers and hunters love the land way more than anyone who's at a protest in downtown Toronto about saving the earth.
100%.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
And I think
farmers also don't have time to go down to any of those protests. Farmers don't have time.
Yeah, I think it's something that's underappreciated in the non-hunting community. I don't know anyone who loves animals more than hunters. I really don't.
Of course, 100%. And the fact that we dedicate, most of us, we dedicate our time and our efforts and our, shooting ethically and shooting, grouping our firearms and our weapons and putting in the work, putting in the effort and the reconnaissance to make it a good hunt and b an ethical hunt and make the death as quickly as possible. It's another thing I try to tell some people like that, the non-hunter types are like, Mother Nature is savage. Wolves, coyotes, these animals, these predators, they eat
them alive.
They eat them alive from the back up, and it's like, at least we can have as humans, we can have compassion. And we can understand that, okay, like, I'm going to try to do this and make it as quick as possible,
I love that, and I want to go on that a bit because I think everyone's always like, Canadians are so nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live in a savage land.
100%.
Yep. And you know what? And we do it with such kindness. And like we had this gigantic snowstorm in southwestern Ontario over the last couple of days, and I was walking from my house to the local convenience store, and everyone was out with their snow blowers and their shovels. Like, the streets were packed with people clearing their driveways, and I was like, this is Canada.
Yeah.
We respond to the savagery of nature by bringing order to chaos.
And with the camaraderie about it.
Yeah.
Every time I'm out shoveling snow and my neighbors are out shoveling snow, inevitably people end up helping each other. Yeah, and I think that's something beautiful and uniquely Canadian for sure.
Oh, dude, 9 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, I'm shoveling my neighbor's driveway. It's just I go outside and I'm done mine, and I look over and maybe it's early in the morning or it's mid-afternoon and they've been gone and they just they didn't have time. I'm over there doing it, and they're doing mine sometimes too. It's just one of those things. It's like,
it's the Canadian way, right?
Totally.
And so going back to the savagery, right? The nature being savage. I think there is a lack of appreciation among, I call them city dwellers, but whatever we want to call them, urbanites. There's a lack of understanding of how easily nature can kill you. Like, there's just a complete disregard for how fragile human life is, truly. We act like we're somewhat invincible, but like, there are parasites wandering around in the sloughs of Alberta that if you drink the water there, you're dead within 24 hours.
Right.
And we act like these marvels that civilization have created that basically shield us from reality, which is that we're meat bags, right? I think that going out into nature and hunting, and like, I was raised in the country and I grew up hunting. I think I was the first person to ever take Zach hunting.
He actually was. David was the first person to ever take me hunting when I was 12 years old.
Is that the gopher stories
hunting,
that you told me about?
Yeah, he took me out hunting. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And like, awesome. I grew up. I have not harvested a deer or a moose myself, but I've been there multiple times when they're being harvested. Grew up on that meat. One of my best friends growing up killed the Canadian record moose when I was right in his backyard.
Hey, no way, that's great.
And awesome. And I always just find that hunters are way more chill, right? They've experienced something that has made them realize, because I guess when I asked you the question, what did you learn about life? What I've learned, because I remember the first time I killed, I was devastated, right? It took me weeks, and I was a gopher, right?
Right.
And well, actually it was a muskrat. And a part of why I was devastated was because when I killed that muskrat, I felt like that muskrat didn't need to die.
Okay.
I just did it, right? I mean, in the case of farmers, often like with gophers, they're pests.
Yeah, of
you
course.
have to if you don't get rid of them, your horses will break their legs in their holes, and your cattle, they'll eat all the grass. There's all kinds of problems with gophers. But when I first killed that muskrat, it was like, why did you do that? And I think that's also something you learn. You learn that there's bad things in you too, right? And how do you look at nature and you see this savagery and you understand that nature is not good or bad, it just is. And similar, but that humans, like you said, get to decide that we'll be merciful. We don't have to be savages. We can be better than nature.
I mean, that's kind of perfectly put. Lovely job, David. I think here's another. I don't want to make this dark, but I have a very interesting comfort level now. I'm almost 40, and for some odd reason, I've got an interesting level of comfort with death, and there's actually something interesting about it to me. And I've lost loved ones to certain circumstances, and I've gotten, still getting over it, getting used to it, and things like that. But death interests me too, and in a sense that, like, responsibility. And again, with taking like even my first deer, there's something interesting about it. And I think maybe if we spent more time understanding it a little more, like I think we're kind of naive in the sense that you can literally just go to a store and buy this stuff and then put it in your mouth and cook it. The fact that hunting can put you sort of right in line with death. I don't know. There's something there. There's a nugget there, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But
Can I take a swing at it?
Yeah.
I think something that hunters have wrestled with that people who don't hunt haven't is their own need to survive and their ability to kill. And we all have it. And, let's take a moment to remember that the day and age that we live in, where we can go to the grocery store and get food, is a relatively new thing.
That's the anomaly.
Yeah.
And so for our entire human history, we had to wrestle with survival and death to survive.
Yep.
And the people who choose to go out and hunt choose to still wrestle with that age-old piece of humanity.
I love that, Zach.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that, I can't put my finger on exactly how that changes you, but it changes you in a very profound way.
I think it's confronting the ultimate human question. The ultimate human question is, why am I here?
Yeah,
right?
totally.
What is this about? And the truth of the matter is, death is a part of life.
Yes.
And we've been trying, and we try to avoid it, and we whitewash it, and we go through the motions. But like, I even think about the fact we don't even live with our old people anymore, right? We used to always, one of the things I love about my uncle, Zach and I's uncle and aunt, is that they took our grandma in and they just take care of her, right? And what he says about that is they also have their daughter and her husband living with them and 3 little kids. It's this intergenerational home. And there is more happiness and joy and community in that house than you see in almost any Western home. Right. And I think it's because we've tried to exalt youth. We claim, like, youth has become our god.
Right.
Like all of our movie stars, they're beautiful and young, and it's almost as if after you hit 30, life is over. And a lot of people treat it that way, right? But there is so much more to life.
Oh my goodness, so much.
And that includes confronting death, because really, I think, and I talked about this on a podcast yesterday or recently, fear is the most prevalent emotion right now in our society. It didn't used to be this way.
Yeah, 100%.
It didn't used to be this way. And I think part of it is fear of the unknown. We're afraid of something we don't understand, and death is the ultimate unknown. But when you confront it with things like hunting or being there as your grandparent slowly dies, you're going to realize that it maybe isn't as scary as you thought.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. that's kind of the enlightenment that hit me a couple of times in my life. One, obviously losing someone extremely, extremely close to me and having to be one of the people that identified her. But when that happened, there was a bit of a click and a bit of a clarity. And honestly, I'm not relating. I'm not trying to downplay the loss of a human life versus the loss of a turkey or a deer or whatever. But death is death. And then and also taking a turkey's life or a deer's life, like, man, those clarity moments happened when that happened too, and it was kind of like a light bulb moment, if you will, So yes,
I always thought that this is what the First Nations understood on the most clear spiritual level.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, I think so. Yeah, I didn't mean to go so dark though, fellas.
No, I love it. I think it's important for people to hear this, because honestly, how many people are living in total fear of a cold? Not a cold. I mean, it's worse than a cold. Mm-hmm. But honestly,
pending your comorbidities too. I'm a heart disease guy. I was born and raised. I was born with heart disease. I had heart surgery when I was 6 months old. I'm a comorbidity guy. So I'm a high risk fella. So like that's
that's scary, right?
Yeah, scary for sure.
But like what I've been saying to people is, when did we become so afraid to die?
Right. Yeah. And hey, that's,
right?
I think that's kind of the thing I've been saying, honestly, David, for the last like 5-6 years of this hunting life. And again, talking about losing loved ones or whatever, there has been that moment of clarity that when were we so afraid to die and to talk about, death and I don't know. And there's something kind of, I got to relate. I got to bring in something too that I've been doing for about the last 6-7 years. I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well.
Oh,
and
of course you have. Every great person I've ever met has been training it.
So I have to bring it in, and it's because I also, the same thing, man, when you've got a grown man, a grown woman, heck, not even a really strong teenager for that matter, they've got their hands around your neck, they've got you in a choke, and they're seconds away from putting you out, and then only seconds away from ending it all. And, obviously you'll tap, but it's those moments too of humility and humbling. Man, like I've been training almost 7 years, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and another enlightenment, eye-opening, life-changing activity is that. And that coupled with the hunting and coupled with just like life-changing things, that's definitely one of them. And I was never, ever, I was the last person to fight. I hated fights. Get me as far away from a fight. I'm scared. I'm a wimp. I'm not into it. I used to get bullied, and no thank you. I'm not into it. And jiu-jitsu, it opened my eyes, man. It
also builds like this level of confidence that given a situation, what you're capable of.
100%.
Right? When you've never fought, I always say this, not enough people in this country have been punched in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Which I have been many a times, by the way, but I haven't retaliated.
I'll tell you what, the first time I ever sparred, I was the first one to land a hit, and I was like, this is great. I feel so alive. And then I got hit so hard right in the head. And you know what? I was even more alive in that moment.
I know. I know.
Oh, dude, it's like it's the weirdest thing, because you get the addict starts kicking in, but we're primal. That it's in us, men and women. It's in us, man. I've been tapped out more times by probably more women than I can even imagine. Like, I'm telling you, it's primal. It's in us, and like. But the best thing about it is you're hugging it out after. You're slapping hands before you do it, and then you're hugging it out after. You're
respect.
Yes,
it's about respect.
Yes, man, and like that's I love that, and that's another thing that I sort of credit to my sort of life, sort of changing, life altering, and sort of waking up is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I was doing karate before that, but
have you done chess?
Have I played chess?
Like have you got into it ever?
Like, no, I mean, I think I played when I was for fun when I was young, not actually. But
I just got back into it about 6 months ago, and I have never done anything that has been better for my mental development.
See, that's really cool. And the fun thing about jiu-jitsu is they talk about it's human chess, right?
So exactly. It is. That is what it is. Yeah.
I wonder how many people have gotten into chess over the past 6 months.
I think that the Queen's Gambit just the chess world back on fire.
If you haven't watched the Queen's Gambit, it's incredible.
I highly recommend
it. Okay, no, I actually haven't watched it.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
It's just great television. Just great television.
You're about to become a chess player.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we have another guest coming on here shortly, so unfortunately we have to cut it there. But thank you so much for coming on. And man, I guess the way that I would summarize what you said, then I'd like to hear your closing remarks is there is so much more out there to bring contentment, peace, love, and joy into your life, whether it be hunting or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There are things out there. Let's not be tied down by our childhood identities, right? Your childhood identity is something you enjoyed and it brought a lot of good things into your life, but you've moved into a different phase now, and that's okay. You don't have to be tied to one idea. What you should be tied to is the idea of living the most holistic and I don't know, at one with the world life that you can.
Again, another lovely piece by David. That was pretty much bang on, brother. I agree wholeheartedly, and I think one of the biggest things for me was after losing somebody so close to me, it was the moment of life. Life is short, and man, like, get out there.
Get out there. Yeah, that is the best summary. Get out there. Live.
That's it, man.
Love it. Love it.
That's what it is to be Canadian. Get out there. We love the outdoors.
We love it. It's in us. It's there. Don't suppress it. Set it free, baby. Let it go.
Yes. All right. Yep. Well, I'm going to just say this has been an amazing pleasure. Zach, I'm sure you have some final words too.
Ian, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for teaching me how to hunt. Thank you for teaching me how to record. Thanks for being my big bro. You're the man. I love you. And we'll have you on again sometime.
Buddy, you're so welcome. It's always been my pleasure. And Dave, Zach, thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Let's do it again. Let's go.
Oh, we will. I have no doubt. This is what Zach and I plan on doing for the rest of our lives. So
awesome. All right, take me along for the ride sometimes.
Oh, we will. And
awesome.
And you know what? Maybe I'll kill my first deer with you,
brother. Like that would be man. That would just make the trifecta complete.
Yeah, exactly. The triumvirate.
Zach's gonna try to get that buck next or this year, the one that he gave a haircut to. So
he'll get it. He'll get it.
So. All right, boys.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and let's love Canada.
Let's do it.
Pleasure, Ian. Thank you.
Cheers, boys.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's the CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.